How do we want to tackle this? And how can we just make sure that everything that is carried into this new brand is exemplary of what we want people to feel, but also at the standard that we want this brand to be at? And so I've just been loving that challenge. It's actually been so much fun for me. I'm Jenna Kutcher, your host of the Goal Digger podcast. I escaped the corporate world at the age of 23 with nothing more than a $300 camera from Craigslist and a dream. Now I'm running a 7-figure online business that feels even better than it looks, all from my house in small town Minnesota with my family. Here, we value time as our currency. We mix the woo and the work, and we are in the pursuit of building businesses that give us the freedom to live lives that we love. I've always loved turning big goals into reality, and I'm here to help you do the same. This isn't just a peek behind the curtain. Come along with me and my guests as we tear the whole curtain down. Every week, we tackle practical, no-fluff marketing strategies and host honest discussions on what works and what doesn't. Join me and my expert guests for actionable insights to help you grow your dream business with confidence. Pull up a seat and get ready to be challenged, inspired, and empowered. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. I feel like it's time to reintroduce myself and my brand. It is wild that I've been an entrepreneur for over 13 years, and that what started as this little idea, this little dream, it has turned into all of this, what you see today, what you feel today. And frankly, it was time for an update. There have been some massive shifts and changes in myself and my life, but I wanted these changes to not just be seen by you, but also to be felt and experienced. So today I'm going to peel back the curtain on what went into my new brand, why it came about, who played a role in helping get it done, if I think it was worth it, and how we went about it. Whether you are building your first brand or your brand is in need of a makeover, this episode might give you a different take on branding overall and will let you into our process and hopefully spark some creativity for you. So let's dive on in to the show. More to do's, less time, and an infinite number of tools to keep track of. Goal diggers, do you ever feel like doing business has never felt harder? Well, the good news is you don't need a miracle to hit your goals. You just need HubSpot. Their all-in-one customer platform can make growing your business so much easier. Imagine this: high-quality leads, fast-closing deals, wildly happy customers, and more benchmark-breaking quarters. It's not a miracle, it's HubSpot. Visit HubSpot.com to get started today. That's HubSpot.com. All right, branding. This is literally one of my favorite topics. It is something I've been talking about on this show since the very beginning of it, years and years and years ago. And I'm so excited about today's episode because it feels like an entirely new take on this topic that I love, because it's the announcement of my rebrand, and I'm sharing everything that went into it, which included a lot of firsts for me. Now, before we dive in, I want to talk about something important and really explain what I believe a brand truly is. Because I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, and especially as creative human beings, we get so excited about the way a brand looks. We're talking about fonts and logos and colors, and it is all of those things, and it includes all of those things, but it doesn't just stop there. When we think about it, a business is a product, service, or an offer that someone can purchase. The brand is the personality behind your offers. Now, notice it's not just saying like your brand is what color you choose or what your logo looks like. Your brand is what makes people feel something. And it's not just about seeing something, it's about feeling something. And when we went through this entire rebrand, of course, we were very excited about what things looked like, but we also wanted to really focus on what is the personality? What is the vibe and the vision? How do we want people to feel when they encounter and experience our brand? Your brand is your copy, your images, your website, your content flow, all of the things that help give your offers a true and recognizable personality. And so I just want to differentiate those things because we're going to be talking about all the aspects of branding today, but I wanted to kick off the show with that important reminder because we often forget it and we lean more on what is pretty, and we can forget about how our brand actually makes people feel and what their experience is with it. So I want to share some of the interesting stories from my brand throughout the years because it's had a lot of iterations. When you think about being in business over a decade and having a business that is really, truly just centered around who you are as a human, I have evolved and changed so much in my journey as an entrepreneur. I recently heard this quote that said, like, if you want to heal yourself, become an entrepreneur. And I smiled and almost laughed because it's so true. I think my journey in entrepreneurship has been a lot about healing and just expanding and learning and growing and imperfectly leading. And I've had a lot of different vibes throughout the years. Now, most of you probably have joined my journey later on, but let me start at the very beginning. When I first started my business, I was a photographer and I had a free WordPress site. And I actually hired a graphic design student to create a logo for myself. And I remember the vibe was whimsy. It was anthropology. It was these muted colors, just beautiful like teal and pink. There were florals involved. I actually still really like that brand. It was hand drawn. It was beautiful. And that was my first brand. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about my branding journey is that when I first started out, when I had $0 to invest in my company, I chose to invest in a logo. And I will never forget one of my favorite business classes in college ever. We talked about branding, and I just was so intrigued by this idea that someone could be looking at 20 different wine bottles in a shop, and a logo would speak to them in a way that would make them purchase it without ever having tried the product. And I am someone who, when they say like, don't judge a book by its cover, I'm like, we all do. Like when we shop, we buy off of beautiful logos and things because they make us feel something, right? Whether it's luxurious or fancy or fun or flirty or whatever it makes you feel. And so I will never forget being in that business class and learning about branding. And we were learning about things like product placement and planograms of like where products sit on shelves and how that impacts somebody's purchasing decisions. And I was so fascinated. To this day, I think it is such a fascinating art. And when I worked for Target, I was just so intrigued at how the corporation would plan out what goes where on the shelves and just the thought behind it. I thought it was so interesting. And so I've loved branding from the very beginning. And when I first started with this anthropology-based brand, I was pretty wise in one, having a beautiful logo that made it look more legit, but two, kind of picking a lane and going into it. And so when I launched my photography business, I went straight to being a wedding photographer. There were a few months before I had anything formal set up where I was taking pictures of basically everything. I did a boudoir session. I took photos of somebody's cat. Like I was doing all the things. I was like, very quickly, I was like, I want to photograph people in love. And so my brand very much hit on those emotions. And I will never forget, I was on this phone call, and now I smile at it because I was like, ooh, Jenna, you were so naive. But I was talking to an account representative for this company that wanted me to advertise with them. And I remember her like wooing me with like, oh, your brand is so anthropology. And I was like, yes, yes, she gets it. She gets the vision. Now looking back, I'm like, she was just trying to flatter me so that I paid for advertising, which I did. After that era, because it was photographs by Jenna Lee, which was very formal, we moved into the Jenna Kutcher era. And that was years. I mean, I was a wedding photographer for 7 years before I fully transitioned out of being known solely as a wedding photographer and into the new era of Jenna Kutcher. And it's kind of funny, and I don't necessarily know why this happened, but I ended up just doing my logo myself. So for the last 7-ish years, I have just been going off of a logo that I made myself. And it's so funny because we've had different things come up over the years where they're like, hey, send us our logo. And I'm like, we don't really like have one. We kind of have one. I don't know. It's just my name. And so it's interesting to me now, having been through this rebrand process formally, I'm like, wow, we've really been like operating kind of just like rogue these last 7 years. The thing is that I don't think it ever felt super rogue because I have always been a stickler for consistency and cohesion. But when I look at all of the assets across the brand, we had a lot of different things going on. We had a lot of different colors. We had a lot of different fonts. We had a lot of different templates. We just had a lot. And I think that my style continued to evolve and change, but we never really sat down and said like, okay, these are the fonts. This is the headline, the subheadline. This is the copy font. These are the sizes. This is the spacing. And now that I've been through this process, I'm like, this is actually really helpful to have like a brand guide where we know exactly what everything should look like so that everything is cohesive. And I've got to give a shout out, and I'm going to shout her out in just a bit too, to my web designer, Jen Olmstead of Tonic Site Shop, because essentially she's been carrying these rebrands year after year when she refreshes my website for us. And so she's kind of been the one leading the charge in what the brand feel, vibe, colors are, without necessarily saying, okay, this is the new brand. It was like, here's the new website. But in reality, the new website was dictating all of the other pieces. So shout out to Jen. When I look back, I'm like, wow, this is wild. We haven't really formally ever done this. And this also goes to say for you, my listener, if you've never done an actual formal brand, this might be something that you just want to explore even on your own, of sitting down and making a style guide of like, okay, what do I want this to look like so that everything cohesively can make people feel something, so that when they see A, B, C, or D, all of them, whether it's a website, a free guide, an email, an Instagram post, they all kind of project that same brand and that same feeling that you want it to. And so if you don't have that, this is something looking back where I'm like, that probably would have been incredibly helpful for me, for my team, for our graphic designer to have those stipulations so that everything that came out of the brand felt cohesive. Because now that we're looking at all of the pieces of the brand, we're like, wow, we were kind of all over the board. So first question is this: what prompted the decision to rebrand? So obviously, looking back, I've never really had this like super formal brand. I have always been the brand. And so as I've evolved and changed over the years, we've had different looks and feels. I never really had this solid brand identity, but the brand just kind of was like following along with my life. Let's talk real life for a sec. Okay, you know those marathon work days where you're hustling from one meeting to the next, and by the time you go to grab a coffee with a client or hug your partner, you're wondering if your deodorant is still going strong? Yeah, we've all been there. Luckily, Lumi Whole Body Deodorant is making sure we never have to worry about BO again. Unlike other deodorants, Lumi uses mandelic acid to stop odor before it starts, giving you up to 72 hours of odor control. Lumi was actually created by an OBGYN who saw how common BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Now, fast forward 6 years, and it has over 300,000 five-star reviews. What I love about Lumi is that it's safe to use anywhere on your body, your pits, feet, under boobs, thigh folds, and even those sensitive areas. As someone who loves to work up a sweat and spends time in the sauna daily, I need something that will keep up with me. Lumi's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off of their starter pack. Use the code GOLDDIGGER for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code GOLDDIGGER at LUMEDEODORANT.com. A few years ago, my LinkedIn profile was dormant, and now I am amazed at the meaningful connections and opportunities on the platform. LinkedIn Ads gives you the power to connect with your ideal customers and create meaningful relationships that drive real results. With 1 billion members, including 180 million senior level executives and 10 million C-level executives, LinkedIn gives direct access to decision makers in a respectful environment. With LinkedIn Ads, you get results plain and simple. They've built targeting and measurement tools specifically for B2B. It's no wonder 79% of B2B content marketers say LinkedIn produces the best results for paid media. For business-to-business marketers, LinkedIn is the sharpest blade in the Swiss Army knife of social media. When you think about it, Instagram and Facebook are where people just want to have fun. But LinkedIn users are actively making professional decisions. They're looking to buy, so they're open to business discussions and connections. And also, LinkedIn is super welcoming for direct messages. On Instagram, sending DMs can send off an intruder alert, but people on LinkedIn expect and even appreciate professional outreach. I guarantee there is no better platform to spend your B2B ad budget. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Head to linkedin.com/goal to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/goal. Terms and conditions apply. Another thing that's really interesting about how we've kind of been branding things is that my business has so many different aspects and offers within the business. And we've almost been doing a bunch of these like sub brands so that, let's say, for example, each of my courses has a different color scheme. So my Pinterest is really pink, red, and yellow. And then my List to Launch Lab is blue and turquoise and navy. And we've always kind of tried to differentiate each offer just so that it's not super confusing to our customers. But in doing that, while it was interesting and kind of each little aspect of my brand had its own sub brand, it also lacked this solid through line throughout the entire brand. Now, on top of all of my courses and offers, I have my book, I have my podcast, I have my online shop, I have my blog. Like there are just so many aspects of it. And it's really exciting for me to have one main identity that houses all of the different things I have going on. Can any of my multi-passionate entrepreneurs relate to this? Like, I refuse to just be put into a box. And so I want to do all the things, but I also want it to make sense. And I feel like we were lacking clarity. Now, beyond what I wanted things to look like, one of the things that prompted this decision was I wanted to almost reintroduce myself. I feel like I have been on such an interesting journey, especially these last few years, as I'm coming out of the weeds of having really young children and babies and kind of figuring out like, who am I? Again, I recently did an episode on like, who am I outside of motherhood and work? And I just feel like this is an area where I'm really exploring in my life. And it's really interesting because I feel like a rebrand almost is like this invitation to step out in a new light, to refine things and to have this like vision of like, this is where I'm going and this is what I'm excited about. And I want to invite you into this. And so there were a lot of things that prompted this decision. I think we finally had the bandwidth as a team to take on a project of this size. I think I was excited of like, I really want a logo and an identity, and I want it to look and feel different than it's felt in the past. And so that was like really exciting to me. And it was something that I started thinking about late last year. So going back to what I was talking about before in terms of like what I wanted it to feel like first, and then we can talk about what I wanted it to look like. I wanted it to feel bright and vibrant and inviting, and I wanted it to feel alive. Like I wanted my brand to feel like it was growing and evolving right in front of your eyes. And what's interesting is that my mission statement has shifted over the years. For many years, I would always say that my mission was imperfectly leading women. And I still do that. And I love that. But I've really woken up to this mission that really drives me. And that mission is I want to teach women to build businesses that they don't hate so that they can live lives that they love. And that just resonates so deeply with me because not only do I want you to build a business, I want it to be a business that gives you life, that really excites you, that gives you the freedom that you desire. I don't want you to just build a successful business by the world standards. I want for you to redefine success on your own terms. This new brand is the introduction to this new mission. I wanted it to show the shifts that I've encountered over the years. I have stepped away from that season of loss. I have been stepping into this new season of life and identity. I am enjoying motherhood. I'm embracing my curious spirit. I'm loving life more than my work these days. And so I wanted my brand to somehow showcase and emanate that feeling so that other women know that it's real and that it's also possible for them too. And that's why I think it's so important to take a look at like, what are your core values and who am I speaking to? Like, who is your target audience? Have they changed maybe in the last year or two? And then figure out what is the exact problem that my brand solves before you ever think about creating a logo. I know it's so fun to get to the pretty things, but I believe your brand is so much more than a business. It is this crucial way that you can connect with and communicate with your audience. And so if you aren't clear on what you are communicating and who you are communicating with, then it is really hard for your brand to connect in that way. So the next question is, what goes into a rebrand? And let me tell you, for us, this has been a colossal project. So for me, I actually wanted to start on the messaging before the feel. I think I've made that very clear. And I wanted to really get clear on like, what is the messaging? What is the vibe? And it's crucial that you start there, especially if you are bringing in a designer, because it is your job to clearly communicate it to any designer you are working with. Or if you are DIYing it yourself, you want to be really clear on the messaging, because the messaging is going to dictate what the logo and the colors and the fonts look like, right? If you're not clear on step one, step two is going to be really mushy. So once I felt really clear with the message, I went to find a graphic designer, and I had a few options that I know and love, amazing women in my life. And I reached out to two amazing graphic designers, both women who I absolutely love and adore. And I ended up choosing and hiring Brianna from Bright and Made. So Brianna was actually the designer who designed the cover of my book. And that was my first experience in working with her. And I loved working with her. I love her work. It was such a natural fit to hire her for this rebrand. Like, everything she posts, I'm just like, oh, it's so good. I just absolutely love it. And I also thought it was really wise to hire her because the design of my book is not going to change, right? Once you pick your cover, your book is going to look like that until the end of time, which is a blessing and a curse for people who are very creative. And so what was nice is since we've already worked together, we know that we can work really well together. We collaborate really amazingly. I love that she could also design the rest of the brand identity to fit with the design of the book without having to match it. And so it was really natural to be like, I don't want everything to feel exactly like the book, but I also want the book to feel like a piece of the collective of my entire business and brand. And so I reached out to her. Now, Brianna recently became a mom. And so it was interesting because I reached out last fall and we got on the books for the beginning of this year. The process of a rebrand takes a long time. And for people like me who are multi-passionate, who are manifesting generators, like, I want to move fast. But I was excited to move a little bit slower through this process, even though like the creative in me was like, get this into the world today. But it was awesome to kind of move slow and thoughtfully through this because it was a really big investment. And I wanted to make sure that I had time to sit with it. And so I actually really appreciated Brianna's schedule and how she laid it out. And I talked about her on a past episode, but man, this woman, I am so impressed with the way that her and her team communicate. So when you hire her, and take notes, if you are a designer, if you are any sort of service provider, when we hire Brianna, her and her team send us a detailed calendar of like, here's when your first draft will come in. Here's when we need your feedback by. Here's when we need your assets. Here's when your approvals will happen. And we knew step by step exactly when to expect everything. Everything was delivered on time, if not early. And I also knew when my time was going to be needed for feedback or to collaborate with her. And I just really appreciated it because one, it takes away so much of the back and forth. So if you are someone who you feel like your clients are constantly hounding you of like, hey, when am I going to see this? Or is this ready yet? You need to create a better timeline and workflow and communication system because instead of emailing her team, I would just pull up that calendar and I would know exactly what was coming and when it was coming. And so there were a lot of like back and forth rounds, which was super helpful. So basically, I had to first show her inspiration, talk about the vision, the mission statement, how I wanted the brand to feel. I was showing her colors I loved. I was showing her different logos and brand identities that I enjoyed. And so that was kind of the first part of the process. So creating something like a Pinterest board can be super helpful here. And one thing that I loved is I was able to go through Brianna's work and say, okay, I absolutely love this that you did here. Like, let's kind of take something stylistically like this, but mix it with these sort of colors. These are the kind of fonts I like. And then we did multiple rounds back and forth where she would send over, say, a logo. And then I would say, okay, I like this, but I don't love this. Can we try it with this type of font? Can we try it with this color until we got to the end result? And one of the things that I really appreciate about her as well is that she doesn't just give a logo. I actually saw a post that she did recently and she was like, all of my like professors would say like, just give a logo and fonts and colors and leave it at that. She does not leave it at that. She was so incredibly helpful at almost even showing like, here's what I would envision for a freebie. Here's what I would envision for your website. Here are, different marks of like, here's a little hand-drawn microphone that you can use for things. Here are different sub marks. Like the folder of our Dropbox of all the different things she delivered textured backgrounds and colored backgrounds. And she is amazing because what she does is so much hand-drawn work, which I resonate with and love, which also ties into my old hand-drawn logo, and our handwriting is eerily very similar. But I loved it because it wasn't just like, okay, here's your logo, good luck. It was like, here's the vision. And what I appreciate about that is I think Brianna is just such a true artist at what she does. And so in doing that, it protects her work and the integrity of it. She knows how she wants it to look and feel. And so giving us this really solid brand guide that we could pass along to our team members allowed them to like match that vision. She's amazing. And so Brianna from Bright Made, we love you. You are amazing. Okay. The next thing that we did were brand photos, and it was so wise to wait on the photos until we had the initial brand direction, because Brianna helped us nail down the color palette and the vibe of the photos. Like she literally had inspiration photos in there of like, this is how these photos would work into the new brand. And it was so helpful for me in choosing outfits and the color story. I had so much fun choosing outfits for my photo shoot because I know a lot of you know me as like sad beige girl. I love neutrals. I think they're amazing. There was a season in my life where I very much connected to like white linen shirts and Madewell jeans. If you've read my book, you know the story. But those days are gone. And that was a beautiful version of me. And I celebrate and honor that version of me. But this photo shoot was so colorful and it was so fun. And we went from having like super neutral backdrops to having like bright oranges and this shade of purple and blues and pinks. And like, it was just so fun and colorful and vibrant and like the type of energy that I wanted this brand to be. And so what was awesome is that I worked with Jordan Quinn, who I have talked about as well in a past episode. And I got to work with her again. I've known Jordan for years and years and years. She's amazing. We really connect. Her son and Coco had a similar due date. And so we had really connected during my pregnancy. And I love her. She's so good at what she does. And so it was amazing because we chose backdrops. I had everything at my house. We set up a little studio in my garage and we worked. We worked that day. We didn't even stop for lunch. I think we shot probably like 15 outfits. I told her, I'm like, let's just grind and go. And so it was really awesome because having had worked with her before, I knew what we were capable of and I knew that we could work really quickly together. And what I love about her is that she is so good at like helping choose the right sort of vibe for the right setting and then also the right poses. And so as a former photographer, I really appreciate direction and just knowing that things look the way that we were hoping they would look. And it was so awesome. And so one of the things that we did is we went through my entire website and we started to envision the types of photos that we would need to fill in the gaps, such as like on the website, I want to show motherhood, but I don't want to show my kids' faces. So like, how do we do that? I wanted to show my favorite skincare. I wanted to show like my wind down routine. That's something really important to me. I wanted to show baking sourdough bread. Like this is part of the new version of me, right? And so we made this awesome list. My team helped compile this shot list so that we had all these different angles and we could knock it out in one shoot day. And I just love how many looks we got. I love how efficient we were. We got hundreds and hundreds of photos. I'm so sick of looking at myself, but it was so fun. And it was also fun because the last time she came, I had really long hair. This time I had short hair. So it just felt like a whole new version of me, which was so fitting for the rebrand. So I worked with Jordan. So once I had all the final assets from Brianna and all the final photos from Jordan, then we started looking at web design. And it was so interesting because it almost felt like a puzzle. Like this was the biggest overhaul that you would probably notice as a consumer because the website just looks and feels so different. If you have not yet, go to jennakutcher.com. I am obsessed with the website. And it was so interesting because, oh my gosh, we just felt like we had so much to tackle. So I have been working with Jen Olmstead for, oh my Lord, probably 8 years, I would say. It was back when we lived in Fort Atkinson. I remember she came to our house, and that was the first time she did our brand and our website. And we have worked together over the years. We've developed a really great friendship. I just think she is a genius at what she does. And she's also the co-founder of Tonic Site Shop. So if you are someone who you're listening to this and you're like mentally adding up all the amounts of money that we spend on this rebrand, yes, it was incredibly expensive, is incredibly worth it. But if you are in the need for a new website, Jen also creates killer templates, like amazing templates. So if you go to jennakutcher.com/tonic, TONIC, you can check out her amazing work there. It's way more budget friendly than working custom, I'll tell you that. So what we did is we ended up doing almost like a twofold process because Jen is so valuable and her time is so limited, and to book her for a custom day is a big investment. And so what we ended up doing is we work with this amazing woman named Tara. She has a company called Oregon Lane. She works inside of Show It and with templates, and she's worked with Jen quite a bit. And Jen recommended Tara probably a couple of years ago. And so Tara is always kind of behind the scenes in our business, helping us build out sales pages and different things like that. And she is just so lovely to work with. She has done so much website work for us. And so what we ended up doing is we brought Tara in at the beginning of the web design, and we had her upload all the new fonts, all the new colors, all the new style guidelines. She started transitioning pages over just using the current design with all the new branding elements. And then we brought Jen in to do kind of her work on a few of the main pages on our site. And so it was awesome because they collaborated. Tara was helping Jen with like the mobile design, and they were working together. We were all working together. And so it was just awesome. And I was like so excited. Whenever Jen is working on my website, I like try to stay out of it, but I just want to peek at it all day, every day. And so it was just so cool to see how Jen was thinking through the new brand and using all these new elements and colors. Like it was just awesome. So there was a lot of collaboration with the web design. I'll never forget when I got my first online course idea. I was so excited about the content, but I was so worried and overwhelmed with how to create it and where to host it and how do I let my students log in. But then I discovered Kajabi and everything clicked into place. Kajabi is the ultimate all-in-one platform that helps you build awesome online businesses and make steady, predictable revenue. I love it so much, I have been using it for a decade, and it has only gotten better over time. You can take all of your amazing skills, passions, and experiences and transform them into empowering online courses, membership sites, subscription podcasts, fun communities, personalized coaching, and so much more. Kajabi doesn't take a single cent of your revenue. That's right. You get to keep 100% of what you earn because everything is owned and controlled by you. With Kajabi, you get all the tools you need in one spot: detailed analytics, easy ways to get paid, awesome email marketing tools, and customizable website templates. And guess what? You don't even need to have a massive audience to make a sustainable income. Thousands of creators on Kajabi are making 6 and 7 figures with fewer than 50,000 followers. So if you are a one-person show needing a helping hand, Kajabi is your secret weapon. Right now, Kajabi is offering a free 30-day trial to start your business if you go to kajabi.com/goal. That's KAJABI.com/goal. Visit kajabi.com/goal to join the creators and entrepreneurs who have made over $7 billion. I will never forget an anniversary trip that Drew and I took years ago where we drove the Pacific Coast Highway from LA to San Francisco. And I was so excited because I was in charge of booking the Airbnbs for the trip. And after looking through all of our options, I found the one. Found this farmhouse where we could rent out a room and wake up and collect our own eggs for breakfast in the morning, feed their alpacas, and play with their goats. When we arrived at this Airbnb, the hosts were there waiting for us with a chilled bottle of wine. They showed us our room and bathroom, and then they gave us a tour of their farm. Now, looking back, that trip planted a seed for us to dream about owning our own rental property and not overcomplicating the process. Since then, we've become real estate lovers and super hosts on Airbnb, and honestly, it is one of my favorite parts of my job. Now, something that people don't realize is that you don't necessarily need an investment property to do this. You can create an Airbnb revenue stream from your own home or even host a single room in your house. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. What's interesting about our brand is that instead of just having, say, like 4 pages where you have your main website, your bio page, your blog, and your contact form, we have over 100 pages. And this is not an exaggeration. We have so many different freebies, thank you pages, webinar pages, sales pages, sneak peek pages. Like, we have so many elements to our brand. And so it feels and felt very overwhelming of like, okay, let's just pretend this is like a triage situation and let's start at the most important pages and then we're going to work our way down. And I'm going to tell you, we're probably going to be working our way through this over the next year to get everything transitioned over. And also, let me tell you, I recognize nobody cares about this except for me. It doesn't change your experience, whether the font is Chronicle or Open Sans, like that does not matter to you. And so it's just more of a process for us of like, okay, what are we going to tackle? What do we not need to tackle and just let be? How do we want to move forward with this? And so it's been just like a really big process. And that brings me to our internal design. So we are working on all of the internal aspects of our brand to kind of get everything transitioned over. And we have so much internal design within our own business. We have ad graphics, we have course workbooks, we have freebies, we have sales pages. There's so much that can be updated. And so we're just going to aim to do it really slowly and methodically. And so while the main aspects of what you see and feel are fully refreshed, it's going to totally take us a long time to flip it. And we have an amazing woman on our team named Maddie. Her business is Maddie LaRue Design. She has been with me for 5, maybe 6 years. And she's basically helping us convert everything behind the scenes. And so it's been so fun to kind of take some of our old work and watch it come to life in new ways. And one of the things that I'm so excited about with the internal design is that in updating the way things look, I am also going through all of the content. And so I have been having an absolute blast. Call me a nerd. I don't mind it. Going through all of our top freebies of like, you know, our ultimate Pinterest guide or your email list launch plan, and literally reworking everything in them to make them the best freebies possible. And so not only are they going to actually look different, the content inside them is different, the emails are different, the landing pages are different. And it has been so fun. I love very slow, thoughtful, methodical work. That is like my jam. Like if that's all I could do, I would love doing it. And so it's been really fun because I think that overall this rebrand has really caused us to say, okay, what do we want to leave behind? What do we want moving forward? How do we want to tackle this? And how can we just make sure that everything that is carried into this new brand is exemplary of what we want people to feel, but also at the standard that we want this brand to be at? And so I've just been loving that challenge. It's actually been so much fun for me. Speaking of challenges, what challenges did we encounter during the process? So there weren't a ton of challenges, I would say, but there were a few things that were really interesting to navigate. And so the first one was just timing. I mean, we had 4 main contractors working on this rebrand and trying to line up each of the contractors and their deliverables to make sure that anytime we brought someone in, they had all the aspects that they needed to do their job. That was really hard because every single contractor has a unique schedule. Some people were falling behind on their deadlines, which was then pushing everyone else out. Kind of reminds me of like when you're building a house and if like one person or one contractor flakes, then everyone is delayed and then the whole project gets delayed. And so just trying to figure out, okay, when can we pass things over? What can we do to make this easier? How can we connect people to the things that they need to do their job? And so that felt a little bit tricky in terms of just micromanaging each person that was a part of it to ensure that like every time we brought someone in and we were paying them, especially an hourly rate, that they had everything they needed to do their job and they weren't like hunting and pecking for like, I need this photo or I need this sort of video or things like that. the other thing that was really interesting was just like how long it takes, right? So we started conversations late last year. We are in the month of July. So it has taken months and months and months. It's like been like a pregnancy length since the idea came until the birth of it. And so it's just been a lot of behind the scenes work. And it's been interesting because I've been kind of letting people in on certain things, but like also trying to keep it under wraps. But then I want to make sure I'm still excited about it and all these different things. And then I would say the last challenge was just figuring out, again, we have so much work out there. How do we want to transition things over? What do we want to transition over? What do we want to leave behind? And just kind of figuring out like, how are we going to get this done for the launch? And what are we just going to have to be okay with not having ready? Other than that, I will say I worked with so many amazing contractors in this process, and they were just so good at what they do. So they made it so much fun. And I know for a lot of people that are listening, if you're doing a rebrand, you probably won't have as many like active players helping in it. It might be more DIY or like you implement it and you just get it out into the world. And just a reminder, I've been in business for nearly 14 years, and this is the first time I've ever done something of this undertaking. So just a reminder. Okay. How will the rebrand impact your audience and community? So one thing I've learned about branding time and time again is that nobody cares about your brand as much as you do. At the end of the day, no one is going to lose sleep over it. No one is hitting refresh on your website the way that you do. So first and foremost, is so important that your brand is just something that you love, like something that you are proud of. You do not want to be one of those people when someone asks you for your website, you kindly direct them like, hey, can you just go check out my Instagram because my website sucks? You want something that feels like you, that matches your vision, that matches your personality and welcomes the people in that you are trying to attract. So at the end of the day, I am so excited about this rebrand and what it means for you, that it feels fresh and new, that it matches the vision of today, that it's meaning that we are updating all of the things to make them better for you. And it's pushing us to dig into what you need more of and how to make your experience even better, whether it's as a podcast listener, an email subscriber, a course student, or just a member of my community. And so at the end of the day, yes, it's going to impact you because our work is getting even better and stronger. And I will argue that. But I also know that like you might not actually care about what a logo looks like. And so at the end of the day, I'm very excited. I mean, the fact that I want to order an embroidered sweatshirt with my new logo on it speaks volumes of how thrilled I am with it. Finally, advice for you, my listener, considering a rebrand or creating a new brand for your business. So the first place that I always want to direct you to start is asking yourself this question. Is it a nice to have or is it a need to have? 90% of the time, formal branding is absolutely a nice to have. That is something that you will aspire to get to when you hit a certain level of success. I mean, I didn't do any of this for so many years. So the proof is that you don't have to have a professional formal brand to be successful. But based on your business type or who you serve or what you sell, elevated branding could elevate your business in a massive way. Next, take the time to review your current brand if you have one, or to journal about the brand that you want to build if you're in the startup stages. While reviewing, what I want you to do is write down the things that you love about your brand, the things that you want to leave behind, the mission statement that fits who you're serving now and what your values are, and the top 3 inspirations you have for the brand. There are so many routes you can go, from using a free tool like Canva to getting a semi-custom brand on Etsy, to hiring a designer to go fully custom. Rebranding in this way is an investment, but for me, it is something that has brought passion and life and refinement back into my business. And I just feel like this brand is going to be the era for a long time for me, right? Like this investment is something that I'm not going to a year from now scrap and start over again. Like it's going to stand the test of times for the next few years, if not longer. And yes, it was an investment. I paid full price for all of the people that I referenced in this episode. I didn't ask for any favors. I wanted to truly invest in them and their work, and I chose them because they are so talented. And so we spend tens of thousands of dollars on this rebrand. And oftentimes when I see companies do a rebrand where like, Wendy's just changes their logo and then they have to update like a bajillion things in all their stores, I'm like, is that worth it? But for me, this investment feels absolutely worth it. It feels elevated and fun. It feels professional. It feels vibrant and alive. It feels all the things that I wanted it to. Now, again, in closing, a lot of times when we think about a rebrand, we often think about the pretty things, the logos and the colors. And as you heard today, there was a lot of that involved. But through this process, there was also a lot of discussion about who am I and what is this brand and how can it reflect me and what I stand for and who I'm becoming, leaving space for the evolution to continue. This rebrand was an absolute labor of love for everyone involved from start to finish. And I am so proud to say that I think we've created something uniquely and undeniably ours. So make sure, after listening to all of this, you go check out the brand in its entirety. Go to jennakutcher.com. You're going to witness the magic. It's so fun. Also head to my social media, Jenna Kutcher. I'm so excited for you to see what you think, and I would love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for letting me reintroduce myself. Of course, until next time, goal diggers, keep on digging your biggest goals. Thanks for pulling up a seat for another episode of the Goal Digger Podcast. I hope today's episode fueled you with inspiration, gave you information that you can turn into action, and realigned you with your true north in life and business. If you've enjoyed today's episode, head on over to goaldiggerpodcast.com for today's show notes, discount codes for our sponsors, freebies to fuel your results, and so much more. And if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed so that you never miss a future show. We'll see you next time, Goal Diggers.